I'm Jane Cooke Lauder, talking to you from Toronto, Canada, on what is a rather cold and wintry morning. Joining me this morning from Chicago is Anne van Eron, and we'd like to talk to you about open-mindedness. And this is something that you have studied and has fascinated you clearly for a very long time. Why is that? And what do you mean by being open-minded?
Thank you, Jane. I have been on this journey since childhood, actually, because I was the oldest of 6 children, and my parents were opposites on pretty much every scale. And from the beginning, I really questioned, how can 2 good people see the world so differently, and how do they possibly relate? They didn't do it very well. And how do they create a environment for this family? And then I thought, as I went out in the world, as I worked in a corporation, had the same issues. How do people have such different perspectives and become closed-minded and believe their way is the right way? How do we get people with that natural instinct to close, to be open to one another, to co-create and become aligned and create a more healthy environments?
And it's interesting. So yours was from childhood, and my interest was spurred, it's got to be about a decade ago, when I was doing some co-teaching with a wonderful psychologist here in Canada, Dr. Mamta Gautam, who specializes in working with physicians. And she was challenging them, saying that, when you show up, or most of us show up for any interaction, 90% of what we're going to say, do, hear, feel has already been prescribed. We're bringing it with us. It's our history. And I was both shocked and excited, in a sense, at what that could mean if we could change that. And that was where my sense of why is that, and what can one do, was really aroused. And so when you think about this concept of closed and open, when we think about being governed by your history, which was essentially what Mamta was saying, versus being open to what might emerge, when you think about it do you think about it in that way? Is that how you define being open-minded, or are there other elements of being open-minded that are important to you?
Thank you. I mean, I think it's natural to be closed, and we like the sensation of being right. I think that's something that, and we also are kind of trained again through our history and get rewarded for being, quote, right. That right now in this environment, probably always, but particularly we're now well aware that when we think we're right and essentially are closed, we actually limit. I think of it as that we limit our and what's really interesting is I've done a lot of research on different parts of our brain are activated. So when we're closed, we really are more, the amygdala is activated, and we are more limited in our perception. But when we are in its open state, then we see more possibilities, more opportunities. We are more grounded and more present in the open state, I believe. We see opportunity. We are open to, more better connections with people. And we can be more curious, where even our heart is open, I think, really to be open, that we're more compassionate. We can take more risks, which we need to now, and we can take better action. So I think it's really that combination. In my mind, I've grown that definition of being open. It's really, to me, a somatic, and we need to embody the openness. It's more than just the concept of my head being open. I believe when we embody it, then we really can be positioned to be more resilient in this time, see opportunities. That's the key for our managers, leaders, all of us. We need to be able to be more creative and have better connections and create more alignment.
Oh, love it. So the whole sense of being generative emerges with being, in your mind, open-minded. And so I was always curious as to why is it, what drives that closedness, and see it in things like the assumptions we make, the biases that we bring into a situation, often so implicit, so intrinsic, as you said, to who we are, the history, often our own perceptions and what we want to have happen, which may be that sense of control. I haven't done the level of studying you've done, but for me as a coach, practically, those are some of the things that I hear my clients talking about, and which are the limiting factors, because they're coming in with all of those present, which are all reaffirming their rightness. And with that sense of rightness is their confidence. And so it's more challenging often to be open and to step into that space. And yet, as you say, it's in that space where there is so much good that can emerge. So Anne, you studied this. Give us one practice, give us one closing thought about how do we shift? I mean, being closed seems as though for many of us is kind of comfortable and where we start from. Being open is this exciting place of possibility. Help us, give us something to work with.
Yeah, thank you. I think the key is, I think of it as like building the mental muscle to be, and the actual, you're exactly right. It's noticing the comfort or the discomfort when we also have another feeling of judgment when someone says, oh, that's not right. So that, I believe, is the clue to when I feel in judgment, and then I want to say, I'm right, you're wrong. And so that's noticing that sensation, which we're pretty quick at nowadays. It's not that hard to notice it these days. So when we feel that sense, learning how to say, oh, wait, there it is. Everything in my body says I'm right, but I want to be able to stop, step back, and shift to be open. So it's very simple, but not easy always. But notice the sensation, and then be able to catch myself and have a little bit of space between my reaction. So it's that response time, a little bit of space, and building that ability to stop. And I ask myself the question all the time. I actually have a little note right on my desk, and I have the letters, are you open? And I keep on asking myself, am I open? And I'm like, no, I'm right. My daughter should do this, or they should put this on, and I feel it all the time. But it's catching myself, stopping, stepping back. And then when I shift to be open, it's remembering moments I'm open so that I could let my body feel open. So for me, years ago, I went on a wonderful vacation in Santorini, Greece, and I was like, oh, I feel alive. I feel open. I'm relaxed. I don't have to I'm not trying to create, tell someone else they're right or wrong. And then that feeling of openness in my heart, my mind, my body. So I can shift to being in Santorini. And so that's one of my secret ways. And there are many, many ways, I think. But having the metaphor of the door opening or closed, or there are many, many ways. But I would say that's one of the keys. Remembering moments when our body felt open, and holding those moments, collecting them, and going back and being in that. It's very powerful for leaders, for parents, for any of us who want to influence others.
Being in relationships. I loved your where you started with your daughter. So Anne, I hear it's that sense of awareness, it's the intentionality, and it's the appreciating that there's choice. You've been there once, finding and anchoring in that place. Anne, thank you. Wonderful conversation this morning.
Thank you. Good.